Welcome to 100% Canucks. John Shannon here, soon to be joined by Landon, Ferraro, and the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, Ryan Johnson. It's been a busy week already for Ryan. He has been in Buffalo at the Combine for the draft coming up at the end of June. He was back in Vancouver to introduce Manny Malhotra as the head coach of the hockey club Thursday morning at a press conference. What's in store for the Canucks? How will this team be rebuilt? What is Ryan Johnson's philosophy of building a club, and how will he deal with his roster? And what's the expectation he has for Manny Malhotra? And how will he, Daniel, and Henrik, and Manny work together to put this team back on track? And how long will it take? All that and more in a discussion with the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, Ryan Johnson, on this edition of 100% Canucks.
I won't keep you long. Darren Millard with a tip for everyone who loves great hockey podcasts like this one. John Shannon and I host the OG of 100% Hockey, coming your way multiple times a week. The guest list is the best you will find. Multiple shows a week ensures you won't miss out on any news, and we dig even deeper into the biggest stories around the NHL. Most of our guests are also friends, so I promise there'll be more conversation beyond the X's and the O's. John really does get bored with that after a while. So join us for 100% Hockey. The name says it all. Subscribe now while you enjoy thinking about it, and enjoy.
Welcome back to 100% Canucks. Landon Ferraro, John Shannon, pleased to be joined by the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, Ryan Johnston. How's your Air Miles project going here between here and Buffalo?
Oh, it's good. It was good, but a good couple of days. I was actually, glad to be here in Vancouver for Manny's Day today, but really got a lot out of the first 3 days there in the Combine and meeting with the kids, and so it was really productive.
Well, before this is the first time we've actually had to chat with you on the podcast since you got your job. Can you describe what your emotions were going through the process when you consider that the moment it was announced that there was going to be a new general manager, there was a bit of a gap until your announcement? And was very pleased with that. I was really excited to go through the process. I hadn't gone through a full process like that before. I think people were, creating a narrative where, why you're internal, should they know? And I felt it was exemplary that they decided, hey, we're going to open this up. We're going to go through 20 people. We're going to go through this the right way. Ryan's going to have to go through this. And I was very fine with putting my sincere and honest thoughts forward. And if that wasn't enough, I wasn't going to lose sleep over it. This isn't something that I've had an agenda to do or pining for. So to go through it, I will say it was, it took a bit out of me. It is, there's some long days, and I stopped kind of coming into the office because obviously I'm still working, but Jim and they're going through a process and Zoom calls with other people. The last thing I need to be doing is walking by an office that they're speaking with another candidate. So I was also very humbled to be mentioned alongside a lot of the people that were going through the process with me. So I thought it was a great experience. Just before Landon jumps in here, was there anything that whole interview situation with Francesco and Jim and Michael Doyle, was there anything that you hadn't thought of that they brought up, or do you feel that you were prepared for every question?
No, there's always things that, or scenarios painted, or what would you do here, or what that. But again, going through it, I just wanted to be myself. That's it, and be me. Talk about what I believe in and how I operate. And again, if that wasn't a fit or what wasn't good enough, I was fine with it. So I wanted to, instead of pretend being something I'm not, I just wanted to be 100% who I am. And if that was enough, great. and it ended up working out. And here we go, hit the ground running. And I haven't really had time to think about much except just the next hour and what's in front of me and make some tough decisions. But it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, like on that, I mean, when we had you on the first time you came on, it was about 8 months ago. And John's first question was, as he was introducing, was, assistant GM in Vancouver, GM of Abbey, do you care about the title? And your answer was, I've never really been a titles guy. Like, just having one's cool. Well, now you're in the big boy chair. Is it different? Like, I know it's early, but...
Yeah, what is different, Landon, is that I have a ton of respect for people that have done this before, or the 31 other people that are doing what I do. I feel very honored. I'm not going to lie and say, I'm not honored and humbled by this. I think being a part of that group is it holds you to a standard, and it's. I've spent a lot of my career, I've said this over and over, of being an observer and doing a lot of listening instead of talking. And a lot of my peer group now are people that I've watched very closely, how they've done things and why they did things and how they treat people. Or sometimes you learn from seeing something done a way you wouldn't want to do it. But still, at the end of the day, I'm very humbled by the title, but it still doesn't define me. What will define me is how I execute who I am and how I want to impact this organization.
What can you learn from Daniel and Henrik?
Well, I've said this before, is that just because you've played the game at any level doesn't mean you'll have success on the other side of it. And I don't think any of us are naive to think just because we played the game or that they're Hall of Famers, that being co-presidents is going to be easy. I think everybody's learning a bit on the fly. I think what we can fall back onto is the type of teammates that we were as players, and how we've wanted to treat players, staff, people within the office. And that's consistent with how they operate, how I operate. And I think that's something we remind each other of every day. That's why we're here, is to really change this organization, but help change the people within it too.
When you take a job of this scale, because it is the very start of a rebuild, other than clearly you're needing a head coach once that decision was made, I've always just been fascinated. Like, how do you start? Because there's obviously the draft, free agency, big picture, everything, but you do have to take a first step somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys if you could tell me where to start.
I can tell you. I just don't think you'd really want to listen to it.
Hey, Ryan, I had a friend of mine describe it when he took a job as like drinking through a fire hose.
That's what 31 other GMs have said to me this week. Is like, hey, how you doing? You're drinking through the fire hose, aren't you? You're darn right I am. So I'm coming back to what I've always relied on, and I've got a lot of hiring to do and putting people in place. But I just, through all the craziness, I come back to I've got to surround myself with really good people that are going to push me, challenge me. Obviously, getting Manny in place was a big one. I've got a lot of other kind of decisions to make, but coming back to, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but just relying on what I felt has worked for me, and in getting really good people around me. That's kind of where I've tend to gravitate to start. And I'm looking forward to getting things in place so I can really just focus on the hockey team and the group we have involved, and building that out moving forward.
We talked about the process of you being hired. You did not hire Manny 3 minutes after you got hired. You took some time.
Yeah.
Would you describe that as a similar process that you felt Manny needed to go through?
In the sense of, did I have? I made it very clear that when I took this job, I was going to spend some time initially having conversations with Manny. Was there obviously a lot of interest in the position and people reaching out and some conversations. But I think there was a lack of urgency in my sense of I really wanted to talk this through with Manny. Manny's really thoughtful in the sense of, and I think both of us are not knee-jerk reaction people. So I wanted to have many conversations with him about many aspects or impacts of him taking this job, and obviously the vision, talking about how we want to see this through. So I felt we needed to talk to, I think Manny needed to take time to talk through with his family of his next step. And so it was something I didn't want to just rush into. I wanted to make sure that everybody was ready to jump with both feet in the pool. And getting here over the last couple of days, it's we're all extremely excited. Even he and I just walking over the rink together today was really surreal of the journey kind of that we've taken together over the last couple of years.
Talking about the hiring and, again, the last time you were on and talking about hiring Manny and Abby and then filling out his staff and saying, the talk is always, he needs experience to help him. But you went the other way and said that, you wanted younger, energetic, the right people, and you can help mold them and help them grow.
Yeah.
I get that that's the American League, and now this is the NHL. How much do you still believe that? Or do you need to focus more the other way?
Yeah, it's something I'm very cognizant of. I have to be careful of, because something worked at the American League level doesn't mean we all know this is a whole different animal. So I always have to be clear to people that I may have had a blueprint or something that operated in Abbotsford and how I wanted to build that. It's not copy and paste that here and this is what we're going to do. So I realize these hires with Manny are extremely important. Do we feel some experience or NHL bench experience would be extremely valuable? Absolutely. And that's just, I think, a good next step for Manny. But at the same point, it's not a prerequisite or we need 2 or 3 guys that have said, hey, I've been here, I've done that. I still believe, and one of the joys of my job is finding the next best person, the young, driven up and comer. Those are challenges I love, or people that I love finding. Where people ask, well, where did he come from? It takes a lot of work to find those people, and I really enjoy that process too.
You obviously found success in Abbotsford, but you just said just because something works there doesn't mean that it's going to work up in Vancouver now. But in a sense, when Manny was hired, that was kind of a mini American League rebuild, like almost a little Tesco. Is there a lot out of that there are similarities, even though there is a massive jump between the two that you can really lean back on?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I do think is consistent in sport, business, is really committing to relationships, whether it's your staff, trainers, your players. And I always say one of my probably fond, great memories of my life was when we won, coming down out of the crowd in Charlotte and having 15 guys lined up in the glass to give me a hug and say, hey, we wanted this as much for you as we did ourselves. That showed me, I think that's universal anywhere, that you can connect and build a relationship in a space of that you can have hard conversations and great conversations. But at the end of the day, when people look at you and go like, he has my best interest, that's why he's vested in me. He wants the best for me. I think that's universal in any language, any job, anything. And that is one thing that I will not let slip, even at the NHL level.
I'm curious. Manny won a Calder Cup, and then last year, through a lot of issues that were hardly your fault or his fault, you had a tough season in Abbotsford.
Yeah.
Which was Manny's best coaching job? The Calder Cup year or last year?
I've said I was almost more impressed with last year. Of it's easy to be consistent. It's easy to coach. It's easy to be patient when you've got this group that has it in them to
to take a step and win you a championship. We felt that. We last year never really actually saw what the team could even look like, but then to be able for the entire staff to say stay consistent. There was no volatility within that building. Volatility usually breeds insecurity, which is dangerous with young players. If you came and watched with 5 or 6 games left and you drove out to Abbotsford and you watched a practice, you would have sat there and went, wow, like these guys are primed for a game 7. Like that to me, to be able to hold on to your group through all the ups and downs that we faced, that's what I felt was his and his staff's finest accomplishment over the last 2 years.
When you bring someone up, like, the coach from the American League up to the parent club, I was a part of that when Jeff Blashill got promoted from Grand Rapids to Detroit. And naively looking back, I remember a bunch of us that, very similar situations, had recently won a Calder Cup with Blashill, and now we're going to be hopefully on the wings with him.
Yeah.
Thinking that you kind of had this inside track because you have such a good relationship, and obviously to the same extent because you know all these guys. Is that something that you have to talk about and make sure guys understand that, we obviously have the relationship, but this is a new thing?
Yeah. And I think even through our dealings the last 2 years of people understanding myself or Manny or how we operate, that I think there's nobody that whether took a step last year, guys that are hoping to make a step, I think they're not sitting there going, oh, I think I got a handout coming. Like I think they know enough that how much you have to earn to get that opportunity, regardless of who it is. I think I actually, some of the players, I think they're almost giggling because they realize how uncomfortable things are about to get based off of how the expectation and I say it all the time, like the focus for me is the 8 a.m. Monday morning. Mm-hmm. It's not the puck drop at 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Our group understands, the players that have been with us together, they understand that, and it gets difficult, but they start to crave it. So I think any of the players that were with us in Abbotsford or took the step last year or trying to get the foot in the door have a very clear understanding of what it's going to take to get there, and that there's not going to be a handout saying, hey, here's your stall. You've been great, Nabby, come sit down. It's I think they know that.
How would you define the foundation of your team?
Well, right now, that's what we've got to reestablish an environment that I think is conducive to players getting better, growing, pushing each other. That'll be the focus, and that's my message now. But we will be built on structure. We will be built on compete. We will be built on players that want to play well for each other and the rest of the people in that room. There will be a real challenge of how much they can push themselves to be a teammate that is at the highest level. So it's not that will all be established. It'll be very clear. The people that don't get on board with that, it'll be very noticeable for them. And then we'll worry about the wins and losses down the road once we fully establish that. And the people that don't, not just players, staff, you name it, the people that don't get on board with that, it'll be very clear.
Oh, sorry, go, John.
No, I from that perspective, since you've taken the job, are you talking to players, or were you leaving that for Manny when he gets hired? How would you manage your roster that way?
I've talked to some of the guys. I've talked to a handful of them. I've got some more to get through the next couple of days. It's not something where I need to call every single guy out of the gates. I think Manny's going to take his time, but there are some conversation I've had. There are some more to have, just in the sense of I want it to be clear in early June, the messaging now and not September 10th, where I think I want them thinking about these things now into their training every day. Are they thinking about what they're about to step into. I think it'll help us get ahead of the curve a little bit, and that messaging will be sent again on day one of training camp of how we're going to operate and the non-negotiables that'll be in place moving forward.
Not to bring up and talk about last year, but just entering the season, it was a different message. They're still trying to push and see what they can make of the roster. Obviously, a very different situation now. What I'm curious about is when you get into this spot and you have some young players that have been in the league, just using a Ratu as an example, or a Lecker-Mackey, that have had some chances and are still trying to take that next step and grab more. When you get to a full rebuild, how do you weigh and navigate, giving some guys some runway to really see what they have, but also not just giving it up, as you talked about a bit before, that nothing's a given?
Well, we want to get in place this environment and the structure. I want to give players an opportunity to make their own bed, in a sense of they'll tell us what they're ready for by how they come into camp, how prepared they are for that. And immediately, our environment is a safe place for guys to make mistakes. It's a safe place for you to have tough days and resources in place that help you through that. So if guys are delivering on the non-negotiables that we're asking, there will be patience. There will be ability to make mistakes, learn, come back and make corrections. So I want everybody, no matter they're 19 or they're 35, to have that opportunity. And the players will leave little clues to you of what they're willing to do.
You said 23 to 35, so that's even the veterans are going to get that benefit of the doubt?
Well, they're going to get an opportunity. They're getting a clean slate to come in and show what they're willing to do. The environment will be very well established where, depending on how old you are, how long you've played, if you're willing to get a little bit uncomfortable to be in it, it'll be very clear. So there is no... I don't want to separate the group into youth, experience, veteran. They're a group, and that's how they're going to be treated. But we are going to allow, there is transition into new systems, as long as they're making mistakes with the right intent and showing the ability to learn, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, in talking to a few guys around the league about you personally, the word that kept coming up was culture, and you're a big believer in culture. Can you explain in your words what your culture is?
Well, I don't. I tend to not use the word because I feel it's very used and seldomly executed. Mm-hmm. So I always speak to the group in regards to it's their environment. It's not easy, but it comes down to some very simple non-negotiables that guys know that they're in a safe space. There's an expectation of professionalism. I harp on it. The biggest thing that is always the finisher in my meetings in September with the initial group is, again, I will push them to be the absolute best teammate that they can be within their own skin. That may seem like, well, I don't understand what that is, or I don't, but players that play with and alongside me, they'll be able to very clearly tell you what that means based off of what the expectation is. Mm-hmm. And it's not a typical, it sounds, well, I don't, but guys that are within that room, they understand that they have an opportunity every single day they walk into the facility to impact the people around them. They have an opportunity to look at somebody that's maybe had a tough day away from the rink or -2 last night. Every day you have an opportunity to impact the group around you. The more time you spend just internalizing yourself and externally look around, it's amazing what it does to an entire dressing room, staff, players,
coaches. They're all expected to operate in that same system. And I think it helped us get to a place of being able to win a championship, because everybody was pushing to do that the best they could within their own skin.
I'm curious, in your career as a player, and this may be an unfair question, who do you, when I talk about your career, who do you first think of as a teammate?
Well, there's a group of people. I was so fortunate. I was drafted by the Florida Panthers that were in a kind of an expansion. And at that time, it was a lot of the older players that were kind of maybe organizations had moved on to. So when I came into Florida as a 20-year-old, I had Tom Fitzgerald, Bill Lindsay, Scott Mellenby, Trevor Kidd, Robert Svela, Brett Hedican, Ray Shepard. I can keep going.
Was Brian Skrudlin, was that after Brian Skrudlin or before?
My first training camp, I didn't really play with Brian, but he was there. But like Paul Laus,
Wow.
Terry Karkner. So I didn't. The first 2 months of my rookie season, I didn't speak. I just sat and watched these. My captain was Scott Mellenby, who was still a friend today. Brett Hedican took me under his wing. They taught me what being a professional was. These guys came to, and I wouldn't have played, I don't think, more than 2 or 3 seasons had I not started under the tutelage of those guys, the pros, and what they did every day, because they were all fighting for their lives in a sense, right, to stay in the league, and they were doing it together. And there's a reason they went, and lost in the Stanley Cup Finals to Colorado when they had no business. Those guys, so that shaped a lot of me, and I love talking about it, because those guys, it took until like the Christmas party for them to be like, hey, you can talk. And I was like, I said, I just have so much respect that I want to earn everybody's respect. And that hasn't left me. And that's,
it's going to have, Ryan, what's going to have is Doug McLean's going to tell us he invented you too. So that's what
well, that's funny. But even Doug and Brian Murray and, Chuck Fletcher and Bill Torrey was there when he drowned. Yeah. Roger Nielsen was on the floor when I was drafted. Like all those people are in me, which I didn't maybe realize. Well, I did, because I didn't say much of anything for the first 3-4 months, because that's maybe one of the first times I've talked about that. But that's a lot of those guys are why I'm sitting where I am today.
Well, I tell you what, all those guys you mentioned, when you create that list of character guys, not just on the Florida Panthers, but in the National Hockey League, all those guys are character guys.
Yeah, and that's where every day was a master class of. I went to school and I just watched these guys be pros and work at their game, and after a lot of them had been in the league 10, 12. And then you mix in a Pavel Bure or something who's a complete other, what an amazing player. But predominantly it was those guys, and amazing just to show up every day and put your stuff on and watch.
You didn't think you could just become Bure after being around him, though?
No, I learned that very quick. I think I played one game with Pavel, Victor Kozlov, and right there, the next day of practice, I started working on my face-offs, blocking shots, everything else. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. But it is really interesting listening to you on that answer, but just on some of the answers in the earlier in this episode, of how they all kind of tie together, and talking about young guys being in a dressing room and being comfortable. Things have changed since your rookie year, where you're walking on eggshells a little bit. But when you look at building a team and building that environment, how big is that comfortability for a young guy, not just so that he feels a part of it, but when he gets on the ice and he's pushing in a drill, that he's trying to get better. He's not worried about what the older guys are told. The reason I bring that up, I was told my first training camp, we were doing a bag skate. You got to slow down. You're going to make some guys angry. And looking back, like, terrible, right? Go play, go hard. How do you make sure that's the message?
Well, leadership. I rely heavily on leadership. It's no secret. A lot of, guys that I brought into whether AHL contracts or NHL two ways, if you look at it, I bet you 80% of them were captains somewhere. I always checked, have they wore a letter on their jersey, and you're nothing if you don't have leadership. And that'll be a focus here moving forward with our group. I think more long-term, but when you have the leadership, it's the opposite. It's the iron that sharpens the iron. And it's, hey, if you can push me tomorrow harder than you did today, like think about how much better we're going to get. And when you've got the, hey, don't make anybody look bad. Let's just, like, what you were doing was trying to earn a spot. You were trying to win the job. And that's when you've got an environment that says, hey, man, if you can take his job, go do it. Like, it's going to make us better. That's a big difference. And I think that does, at the end of the day, come from internally your leadership that you have.
Does that mean you're going to need a captain, or can you live without a captain?
No, I've said my whole time of managing teams, it's never something that I've forced. I have no problem not having a captain. That has to present itself. It has to be natural. It eventually becomes something that you don't even have to discuss. It's just there. And that's, I think Manny and our approach here will be, we will, everybody's got a clean slate, and coming into training camp, and that will, we'll determine at that point where we go.
All right. You said you had been in Buffalo.
Yes.
You can give us the scoop. What was dinner with Gavin McKenna like?
Well, in respect to the, the privacy of the player, but just in a very short time, his interview earlier in the day, and sitting with him and having dinner, I thought he was an outstanding young man that really his values and his family and how important his heritage is, and being Indigenous and his grandfather. I was just really impressed with what was important to him as a person, and didn't know much about him besides, the headlines or things that go on. But I went into that with a very open mind, and I thought at the end of it was a really impressive young man that I think is going to do some great things in this league.
How many interviews did you guys do in Buffalo, or have you done?
Well, I left partway through yesterday to get back, but I think we'll probably close to 60 throughout the week.
Wow. Wow.
Can you realistically keep those straight? I did 27 on the player side, and I don't even think I'd leave some of those meetings. I'm like, I don't even remember what team I was just talking to.
For sure. Yeah. I think I said to people is that there's so many impressive young men with, they were feeding the energy to us, where somebody sits down and tells some of the adversity they've faced and how they tackled it. And I'm sitting there going, this kid's 17 years old telling me how he navigated that. I don't know if I could have done that. And some of the strength and the, just the maturity of these players. I didn't want it to end. Eventually I was like, let's keep doing this, because there's just so many great stories, so many great kids, and it gives you context, especially when you looking at a draft list and you see them as players in a jersey number. Now, when you've had these conversations where you get in some hard decisions now, or some clumps of 4 or 5 players, these interviews really help differentiate those clumps. So it was enjoyable, really.
This is a cup half full question. Is it actually an advantage to be third in the draft?
Well, I mean, it's such an interesting year of stories, players, position, you name it. So,
and team needs. I mean, let's face it, San Jose has a totally different perspective on what they need at the pick before you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And my gut tells me that this could turn into something really of whether teams moving up or down, or, maybe teams going off of what the expectation is publicly and selecting a player that they believe in and they've seen. So I'm just preparing on our side to just be ready for all scenarios, because this could go many different ways. In my opinion,
you're not trading though, are you? You're not moving, are you?
Well, we'd be wrong not to listen to anything. So I'm not closing the door. I'm here to listen. We like the player that we think we could get at 3, but if there are different opportunities, I will at least listen. Be crazy not to.
Just bringing it back to the combine here. I am curious, not asking you to put out your trade secrets of how you run your meetings, but there's different styles, right? You'd walk into someone who's more of a boardroom type thing, some that are really relaxed, some that were asking me to break down video, some that we literally didn't talk about hockey. When you talk about a really clumped up group of really good players at the top of this draft, how do you use that time? Like, is there, again, not asking you to say, but is there specific questions or scenarios that you put out to guys to see the difference, or is it play it by feel almost to a sense per guy?
Yeah, we had a small group. We had 6 of us in the room. I felt for us, and for me, I felt it important not to intimidate by numbers. I want them to be comfortable. I don't want them to be jittery. And obviously our mental performance coach is in there, which has some questions or scenarios he wants to run through. But I felt that I enjoyed it when the conversation just guided itself. And sometimes it led down a path that sometimes I didn't even have a question. I just wanted to comment on a kid of how impressed I was with how he approached something, or use it as an opportunity to make a kid feel maybe really good walking out of there, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I just got stripped down to but yeah, we kind of let it. We have some staples or some things that we'd like to get out of it, but sometimes it just took itself down a whole different path, which was nice.
How did they compare to the interviews you did in 1994?
I remember one, and it was with the Detroit Red Wings, and there were beds, and there was 20 people in the room, and Scotty Bowman was on the front of the bed, and I was sitting on a radiator that was running, so I was kind of, and had committed to play college hockey, and he didn't feel like that was the best decision for me. He felt I should go to the OHL and learn to be tough and play in that. And he asked me multiple questions. Well, you haven't answered why you're going to college. And finally, I just was like, I don't know what to. Needless to say, Scotty didn't draft me, so it didn't work out. But that's my one. I sparingly remember some of the others, but that one I'll remember. And he's, a legend and in the game, and so fortunate to have that conversation. But
you look ahead at summer here, and a lot of us think of summer and think of downtime. I imagine you're not going to get a ton this year or this summer, but when you get through some of that, will you be able to get away a little bit and kind of look back on and reflect on the opportunity that you've earned here and sit it in for a second?
Yeah, I think, admittedly, it's going to be a sprint at least until the middle of July and development camp and get through that. I think at some point I do want to at least reflect a little bit, maybe try to learn from what I just went through. Maybe it's a good opportunity to say, I could have done that different, or I could have approached that different. But I think when I do get to that point, then I'm going to start thinking about puck drop and, okay, can we now really do get to the fun stuff? But yeah, I hope, Lando, I get to that point where I can step back. Right now, it doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon.
I'll keep my fingers crossed for you for at least a day or two.
Awesome.
You got some money for free agents?
Obviously, we're being very strategic in the sense of we're knowing where we are and what the vision is. We're not going to try to jump the line. And spend without a purpose. We've got areas out of the gates that I think just
need to improve on, and some team identity and maybe role definition. But I'll look at opportunities of doing that, maybe via other routes. But you're not going to see us unless our picture changes. July 1, sitting there spending a ton of money. We're going to try to build this through the draft and do it slowly, do it right. And if there's opportunities to add and stays to the vision, sure, we will do it, but be very strategic with it.
That will be the challenge, is sticking to the plan over the next few years, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're committed, and that's where, between ownership and Daniel and Henrik, myself and Manny, this came together for a purpose, and we're all doing this because of the vision that's in place, and we're excited to execute it. But we know, when things go a little well, you can't get overzealous and go, okay, hey, but now we're on a 5-game, we're going to do this. You've just got to stay the course and trust. And there's many organizations over the last, 5-7 years that have done it the right way. And you look at where they are now, and we've just got to stay committed to that.
Well, I've been on the record as suggesting that the closest thing that you guys could follow is what Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis have done in Montreal, because that's exactly what they've done, correct?
Absolutely. And I think they've been patient with it. And I think it was commendable of even them. And I don't mean to talk about it. I don't think it's right to talk about other teams, but not making a big deadline splash.
Right.
Being able to say, hey, we love our group. Let's stay the course with this. Let the players here learn through their experience, and look at what that group got out of the playoffs. Like that, sometimes you have to understand why you lost before you can take the step to win. And I think they're poised for great things.
Hey, Ryan,
talk about just one last one.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Talking free agency and stuff, you got a bit of a jump on one, signing Ilya Safonov. He's a big 6'5" centerman. Obviously that's the age and a frame that you wouldn't argue against. What does that signal? But also, what do you expect out of him coming into training camp? As a bit older of a guy, but his first real push.
Well, I had a Zoom with him the other day and basically laid out to him what we've discussed is he's got to be ready to go. Training camp is much shorter. He's a big body that loves the net front and scrap and claw on a power play, but he can kill penalties. He can win draws. So he's a prototypical bottom six guy that you could use on a second unit power play, because he just loves to stand in front of the net and take a beating. So I've just told him the opportunities, you have to come in. We challenged him to improve his skating a little bit. You have to come in the best shape you've ever been in possible. And then you can't ease your way into this North American game. Training camp now is so short. There's 4 exhibition games and you've got to make a team. And so that's the message to him was, you're coming into a new culture, new environment, that he's working on his language, but you just don't tiptoe in, because it could be over really quick. So, but we're excited about him. He's eager. He's had a great experience this year in the KHL, going all the way to the finals. And so we're excited to get him here.
Ryan, thank you very much for this. Appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Ryan Johnson, the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks. Landon and I'll be back after this on 100% Canucks.
All right, listen up. Today I want to talk about giving 110%. Giving 100% means giving everything you got. Giving 110% means giving 10% more than is humanly possible. If we're going to win as a team, we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. If only 50% of you guys give 110% and 50% of you guys give 100%, I guarantee you 100%, we'd only win 50% of our games. Suppose 75% of the 110% gave only 50%, and 50% of the 100% gave 25%, and 75% of the 110% were not feeling 100%, then we'd be in a heap of trouble. That's why we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. Okay. Let's go out and play some hockey.
So, Landon, last week we had Henrik Sedin talk about culture and structure and accountability, and I think today with Ryan Johnson we got a similar message of a group that is trying to reform an identity for an NHL team that is in dire need of one.
Well, I mean, they've all said that the continuity between them and the understanding of where they're at and what their plan is, Henrik, Daniel, Ryan have all said how good it is. Well, we've heard multiple different interviews now with them being separate, that message has stayed the same, right? Like, they do fully understand what their goal is, how they want to go about it, and not being, like Ryan said, like dead set in a certain way. You know, I remember through that Calder Cup playoff run, hearing a line from the players that came from Manny Malhotra about the AHL. It's the Adaptable Hockey League. Like, I think that line is more true now in Vancouver than it is for the American League. You have to be able to be sure about what you're doing and commit to it. But when something pops up, not have an ego about it and say, no, I'm right. Right? Like, I don't get that feel out of this group, especially with Manny joining the fold today. You know, I see a group that really understands what they want, and they trust each other, and they trust the people they put in place to do jobs to do them. You know, I just think it's already such a different feel to the organization. And I know it's just words, but in saying that, I mean, they've already kind of done the right things in the right way. Even something as small as hiring Manny the other day and sending out the email first to the season ticket holders, right? Like, they're trying across the board to take the right steps. Are they going to hit every step right? Not a chance. But if you do that consistently, you're going to get it right more times than not. And that's what you're looking for here. You know, I'm excited to see where they go. You know, just like you, I've got a ton of respect for Ryan Johnson, the way that he conducts his business. And again, really excited to see what he's able to do at the NHL level and, you know, really being in charge here.
So Manny spoke this morning. Your thoughts on and you were close enough to the guys in Abbotsford as we've talked about. What are his strengths in all of this?
Well, I'll first say, just from firsthand, like being on the ice with Manny when he was towards the end of his career, I was, you know, kind of in the middle starting of mine, and we worked out of the same gym as me. We'd go on the ice early morning and go work on stuff. You know, he was a player then, but he was coaching. And as a 23, whatever I was year old at that time, you knew not to question it. And it wasn't because I was scared. It was just like, look at this guy. I don't even really fully understand everything he's saying all the time, but I'm going to follow, because you look at his body of work, the way that he walks through a dressing room or a gym, and you can see the respect that he gets. And again, it's not because he's this hulking guy that's intimidating everyone. He treats people with respect, but he also really makes known what he wants and how he wants it done. And when you're a player, especially at the top level, that's all you want. You want someone that's going to be honest with you, even if it's, hey, that was not very good tonight. Because you know, if he's telling you that, he trusts you. He knows you can do better. He wants more from you. It's now more of a partnership than the coach kind of yelling down at a guy. You're in the battle with him, and that's exactly what I saw in Abbotsford. That's what Ryan Johnson was talking about, you know, going down to the ice after they won and guys lining up to hug the coaching staff and him because they were in it together. That's not a feel that, not just saying from this past regime, but has not been in Vancouver for a while, that it feels like. And it's already started to feel that little bit of a shift. Again, that doesn't mean that they've got it perfect, but you need that wheel to get rolling before you can find that momentum.
The fascination and the unfortunate thing about any reference to how this team is different and how things are changed will always look like criticism to the previous regime. Yep. No matter what anybody says, like, we're going to be fast and young. Well, that means the old team was slow and old. We're going to change the culture. Oh, the culture was bad then, was it? I mean, every word is going to be analyzed to the extreme to make it look very critical of Adam Foote, Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, and whomever else was here in that period of time. Even if at times it isn't critical, it's just a reality of having, 4 former players, Daniel and Henrik, Ryan and Manny, at the helm of an NHL team. It's a reality of what the business is like, and it's a reality of what the media and fans in a hardcore hockey town will jump on. It's not critical. It's just, hey, better get used to it. It's going to happen.
I mean, if you break it down to the simplest terms too, right? Like, no one's getting fired because they did too good of a job, right? For what their goals were, it didn't happen. And from where the team was before to it is now, again, right? Like, if they were in a hunt for a playoff or for a Stanley Cup, you're not making a change. Something needs to change.
Right.
They bring in new players or new management, and within days it sounds different. We have to see if it's going to be different, but again, there needs to be change to have change.
Well, I will remember now not to use the word culture around Ryan and use environment instead. Which I think he told us. I think he told us in October as well, but I just didn't pay any attention to it. So from that perspective, there is a different environment. You can feel the environment being different, and it actually started to be different in my mind after the trade deadline.
Yep.
And the progress and the process that went over the last few games of the regular season, and then this whole process that we have been part of and witness to in finding Ryan Johnson as the general manager and finding Manny Malhotra as the coach. Next week we will talk to Manny and get his sense of what his life is going to be like, and perhaps we'll talk to a couple of players too to get a sense of what they view their lives are going to be like, not only next season but probably in the off season as well. Thanks for this, Landon.
Yep, thanks again. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening and watching this edition of 100% Canucks.